Nick, you ready?
Hell yeah.
Mike, you ready?
Ready?
Jeff, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, guys.
Perfect.
Freshly picked and ready for consumption. Here comes another round of the Radishcast. Another Radishcast coming in for you. I'm your fearless commissioner and overly engaged league member, Mike Fisher. Along with me, just like every time, are my co-host Nick Spill Stoll, and Jeff hasn't started the last place video yet, Gregory. Let's turn some rumors into facts. Am I accurate in that assessment, Jeff?
Oh, you are. Nothing like putting a little crunch time on before the big thing is due, so it'll all flow right when it needs to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we have a due date? Was it the draft, or was it? It's got to be the draft, right?
Yeah.
All right. Even if it's not, that's what we're calling it. It's due with the draft, so you've got less than 2 months.
Perfect.
Good luck, sir.
All right. Well, anything else you guys want to cover? I know we got a lot to get to. I know you guys got a little sneak peek in the pre-intro there as to what's coming up. So, if you guys don't have anything else, why don't we jump into the first segment? Baby watch. So we're doing a little bit of a baby watch here. There's been a lot of action on the baby front in the league lately. I'll throw up on the screen maybe a picture of the new league babies. And I thought we'd do something a little bit fun. Since we got 3 league babies and 3 hosts now, how about a little baby mock draft? So Jeff was able to come away with the number 1 pick. Jeff, anything obvious here?
Well, there is definitely a clear-cut number 1 pick that's in this group of 3, and it's not even close in my opinion.
Oh my
Nick,
God!
Do you have the same? Do you also see it that way, or is it split for you?
We got 2 cute ones, and then 1 not so cute. So yeah, we'll see. That has to factor into it.
I'd hate to be the parents of the not so cute. And see, I think I'm gonna go a little different route. You might go the cuteness route. I'm gonna go on versatility. I'm really looking for a baby that can do it all. So that's really gonna factor into my decisions pretty heavy.
A pretty all-round baby. Yeah. Who secured the number 2 spot in the mock draft?
That's Nick. So I am unfortunately rounding out the back. And, age really has to factor in too. This is a dynasty league. It might take some of these babies, a few extra years to really come into their own. But you got to look long term in these.
You also got to consider, the parents and the upbringing and, the background, the environment,
factors in
all that stuff has to come into play. So.
Yeah, we're not actually going to mock draft any babies. That seemed a little bit mean. We're going to wait till we have 6 babies so we can do a proper snake. That way I don't get screwed at the tail end of it. So once there's 6 babies in the league, then we'll start talking mock drafts. But no, I know I got to show you guys some of the babies on the screen there, and we had a chance to look through them. Lots of love as the league continues to move forward. We got Benjamin, Jonah, and Charlie on the screen. So anything else on the
part
babies,
owners
boys?
there, right?
Yeah.
Some part owners there. Is Cooley's part owner as well?
I do not know what share Charlie owns in Grizzly Adams. After the only championship Grizzly Adams will ever win, I don't know that Cooley's dying to give up shares, but maybe
Charlie did tell me the other week that she is super excited for Mike Davis, just like the owner of Cooley. So, it's like father, like daughter, I guess. So Does Benjamin have any idea what's going on with that 5% stake? Because I'm not 100% sure what direction that team's going.
Oh, I'm not excited for it, so I can't imagine he is.
All right. Well, we've had our baby fill. Why don't we hop over into a little more football related topic?
Divisional deep dive.
You, you, you. You're cool. And you, I'm out.
The divisional deep dive, our chance to talk our smack and plant our flags on each division. So why don't we start out looking at the division we talked about last time, actually. So the B&B division, we got Ben, John, Nick, and Stank. And really the only reason I wanted to circle back is we've seen quite a few trades happen in the league. Specifically, Ben, John, and Stank have made a lot of moves. Nick, not so much. And, when I look at my rankings from last time, I had John in the lead for the division. I had Ben, then Nick, and Stank coming in the rear. That's actually changed quite a bit. I think Stank's made some good moves, and I think John has made some, suboptimal moves for this upcoming season. So my new rankings actually have Ben at the lead, Stank jumping all the way up to number 2, John dropping to number 3, and Nick bringing up the rear, making no moves to try and improve his roster. Any major changes from you guys on that division?
Yeah, so I like Stank's moves a lot. I think I'm going to bump Stank all the way in front of me. Then I'm going to follow up Ben, and then myself, then John.
Ooh,
no pride in myself.
Yep. So Stank just went from worst to first in your eyes with those moves, huh?
Oh, yeah. He's playing for this year, baby.
Worst.
Give me that little
Jeff,
Zeke
how about
action.
you? I know you had faith in Ben as leading the division. Is that still the case?
Yep, I still got to roll with Benny and the Jets as the number 1. It's really close for me between John and Nick, even with John's moves. The only real change I think I'm going to do is I'm going to move Stank from from the previous time into the second place. So
okay,
and keep then John, then Nick. So
a lot of love for Stank, and I think that really
guys.
comes down. It really comes down to him taking advantage of where he had excess. Right? The Kittle trade to me really was only that beneficial for Stank because he had Hawkinson. So now you have a guy coming in that's still going to be solid at the position. And also trading away to Deshaun Watson, who we were kind of expecting wasn't going to play this year anyway when we were going through our rankings. So, he really got rid of nothing as far as this upcoming year is concerned, and picked up Moss and an early second rounder that could contribute. So
plus the bump in Tannehill, that's got to come into play too with Julio going there. I mean, that was probably part of the reason Stank was able to get and dump Watson to John. So,
absolutely. Specifically
talking next year, Tannehill, I mean, he's got to be happy about that move. So
100% agree. So let's jump into our next division. And this division hits close to home for me. We're talking the Augie Augustine division, newly named by the defending unfortunate champ Grizzly Adams. Finished last year 11-5 when you include the postseason. Nick, I'll throw this one to you first. What did you see in Cooley and his team?
That Mike Davis in Atlanta, that's huge. I don't know how he keeps getting so lucky like that. Mike Davis last year picking up some games, some points. Barkley coming back. I mean, his team doesn't look terrible. I don't love it, but with Barkley and Davis in there, Kelsey's still doing his thing. We'll see Debo, how he is coming healthy into the season. And of course, Koo, but yeah, not terrible. I don't love it. I don't hate it.
Yeah. And when I look at Cooley's team, I mean, really it's the 3 single positions, the quarterback, the tight end, and the kicker, where he has a huge advantage in most matchups. It's crazy to throw kicker in there, but if Younghoe Koo is half what he was last year, there's not much else that he needs. So if he can get the same production out of Kelsey and Jackson, he can kind of make up for a weaker running back core or some wide receivers that I don't really see a wide receiver on his team that's a dominant one or like someone you'd be excited as your top receiver, but they're all solid except for Corey Davis. But Jeff, anything you're seeing here?
Yeah, just his wide receiver core is just, they're going to get a bunch of targets. They're going to get, once they get the ball in their hands, they're explosive. So, we saw it last year. the guys hit on the right times. When he needed big games out of those guys, they got him. And that trade for Samuel, I think it's a good trade for him to get Debo over there. Barkley coming back, like you mentioned, Nick. And then really, you guys Mike, it sounds like you're a little down on Corey Davis, but him going to the Jets, I think that could be a kind of a sneaky play every once in a while, especially in a flex position that Cooley currently has a need for. So
yeah,
he
there's
might
always
be a
the
spot start
opportunity
every week. I don't know if it's a full time.
I don't want to write Corey Davis off
I think
entirely.
his team is pretty good as far as his starters go.
For sure. I don't want to write Corey Davis off entirely, but I will say that, last year was the first year he really emerged, and it was across from a truly dominant number one receiver. So whether that continues or not, I guess we'll see. And that Jets, wide receiver core, we really just don't know who's going to come out of it. They've got Crowder, they've got Mims, they've got the newly drafted Elijah Moore, they've got Corey Davis. Who is truly going to get the work there? We just don't know. So it's a lot to be seen. But anyway, why don't we jump on to the next team here, which is the SCLSU Mud Dogs and Coach Troy Hecht, and now co-owner of the team, Joe Harper.
Oh.
So, some of us have met Joe at the old Hecht wedding. A welcome addition to the league. Hopefully he's going to enjoy his first Radishcast as member of the league here. But, Jeff, I'll toss this one to you before anything. What do you see on Troy's team, and how do you like his chances?
I like his team. I mean, Troy's got some top heavy players with Mahomes, Henry, Mixon is set up for a good year, Allen Robinson, and then with Brandon Cooks and Tyler Boyd, those are two really good complementary wide receivers to have in any starting lineup. I mean, they're poised for a good year, and Cooks is going to have every and all targets on a kind of a depleted Texans team. And then the Bengals, with Burrow back and hopefully healthy, they're just going to be slinging the rock all over the place. So you got to like your chances with Tyler Boyd. Last year doesn't really have a lot of depth right now. Performed well for what they did last year.
Yeah, sorry, I had some internet problems there. It looks like I missed a little bit of what you said, but Nick, I'll toss it over to you. What else you seeing from Troy and his team?
Yeah, that's the same thing. I see super top heavy. It's going to be a lot of reliance on Mahomes and Derrick Henry. I actually think they're still going to feed Henry the ball even with Julio there, and it might make it easier to run the ball. We'll see what they do. I think they're still just going to run the hell out of them. Looking down, Joe Mixon too, coming back. I thought I read something that Joe Mixon is unlikely to be an every down back. I don't know who's in that backfield.
Yeah,
P. Ryan, I think I saw.
Yeah, they brought up the idea that he would split third down work. Samaj P. Ryan and Chris Evans, the rookie, are the only other two that I can even think of offhand.
And Troy's got a nice handcuff for both Henry and Mixon on his bench too. Yeah. So he's built up some nice depth at that running back position with those two teams, which you got to like to see there.
Yeah, I do think, Troy had a rougher off season than some. Christian Kirk really took a hit from having much path to relevancy with AJ Green and Rondale Moore both signing on there. Tyler Boyd took a hit with the early pick of Jamar Chase. There's just more mouths to feed there. And Leonard Fournette, even, most of his success last year came because Ronald Jones couldn't catch the ball and he could. Now Gio Bernard gets brought in, so that just further splits the work back there. So I do think that he had a little bit of a rougher off season and is in a position where he doesn't have much draft capital to address any of that. So
does he have any draft capital?
He picked up the 12th pick in the second round from Cooley for James White.
Oh, okay.
But let's jump on to the third team, which is yours truly and the Archduke Fish. So I'll let one of you guys take this first. Nick, why don't I toss it to you first? What do you think about my team?
I really like your team. From 5-10 last year, I was just talking about before the podcast. I was roster baiting your team. I don't know if that's weird. I don't even care. I like the moves you made addressing your tight end position with Kittle. Picking up Tom Brady, it's a win now attitude. You got some young running backs here. You got the Evans-Brady combo. I think Woods is going to have a hell of a year this year with Stafford there. Yep. So I like it. I like it a lot.
Jeff, do you want to give me any more props than Nick already just did?
I mean, Nick just gave you a bunch of them. I'm trying to think of something to kind of bring your head down and
back down.
But no, I mean, honestly, like your offseason, I think was a pretty good, pretty successful, not to try to echo Nick too much, but that Kittle and Brady addition to your teams with your current roster, not only with the guys you have on it, but you have, I think, 3 picks inside the top 14. So if I correct me right, or something like that. So
okay, whoa.
Yeah.
4 in
so
the
you
top
got
14,
4. So you got a lot of ammunition in this draft. So you got some young players that you can backfill on this team and let them sit and grow for a while. So I think right now, I would imagine you're one of the most dangerous teams and probably had the best offseason, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm going to just dive down into the depths of my roster a little bit. One of the guys I'm most excited for this year is Henry Ruggs. I really, didn't have a great season last year, but Nelson Aguilar was their top receiver. He went, it's just another opportunity for him. And I'm not saying that, Henry Ruggs is going to come out and be a monster, but all I'm saying is he's a first-round pick who has an opportunity. And really, when I'm talking about the guys that are sitting on my bench, that's what I want. I want a guy who's got a chance and he's got, at least some draft capital. The coaches clearly think highly of him. So I'm real hopeful for him as far as a guy that maybe could sneak out and be seeing my starting lineup quite a bit.
Yeah, a lot of hype
probably
from
feeling pretty good
season.
about that Josh Reynolds going in before that Julio trade, I have to imagine. And even so, he still has some value with, a potential injury here and there, especially with Julio's history. But, that's about the only thing I can think that was kind of bad for you this offseason. And it's
trading.
I've heard a lot.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of, I was changing the subject, but I've heard a lot of hype about T. Higgins. Big Dick Joe talking him up this offseason, saying he's getting stronger, bigger.
I did see the most explosive he's ever been. I saw. So.
Yep.
I going back to the Reynolds thing, that trading for him last year, that was really, it was a shot in the dark hope that he would sign a contract somewhere where he could have some value. I really thought I was going to have the number 2 receiver, maybe he would get a portion of what Corey Davis got last year. I still have, hope Julio and AJ Brown are not immune to injuries as we saw last year. So, there's still the chance that he'll have some games this year, but obviously took a big hit on the season as a whole. So we'll jump on to the last team. So Lick McCaff and Medak, 3-11 last year, brought up the rear, but got out of the toilet bowl with some clutch wins down the stretch in rivalry week and in the playoffs. I look at his team and he's got an unbelievable running back core, a great quarterback, but just a lot of average receivers and average tight ends that it's just, do those guys sustain enough value for him to really compete? And he's another guy that doesn't have a lot of early draft capital to help him. Does Robert Tunyon's, touchdown rate from last year? He had number 3 tight end on the year, but it was at an incredible amount of touchdowns. Gronk, maybe he could have another year with that Tampa Bay offense, but again, there's so many bodies there. How can you really rely on him getting his every game? So, Jeff, what do you see here? Anything else that really sticks out to you from Jordan's team?
Yeah, Cortland Sutton, I think he got injured last year. We talked about it and heard about it a little earlier today too, but I think he's poised for a good year, solid bounce back. Same with Dak, so just Jordan's got to be thrilled coming into this year, just having his main guys now. He played and battled through most of the year last year without these guys, and just even being able to throw them in the lineup for hopefully multiple weeks is going to be an advantage and a plus for him. So,
Nick, anybody on Jordan's team that maybe is, someone, if you were him, that you'd try to trade away or try to package just to get a little bit more, a little more solid wide receiver core? Is there anybody on that team that screams, I should try to get out now when the value's high?
Maybe Aaron Jones. I don't know though. I mean, you almost have to ride those top guys if he wants to have success this year. Yeah, that trade for Claypool, I don't know if I'm in love with it. And Marvin Jones in Jacksonville, we'll see about that. I don't think he's going to have as good a year as last year, but maybe Aaron Jones while the getting's good. I don't know what that team looks like next year. Is Aaron Rodgers going to sit a little bit?
Who knows?
Yeah, that's all up in the air. And I know, going into the offseason, I think Jordan had to feel a little bit better than he does now about his team, because you really thought Juju was going to go somewhere else, which would have led to Claypool being, one of two options relevant on that team. But, it seems more like it's going to be a lot of the same what you saw last year, which was just inconsistency and not someone you could necessarily rely on. So that definitely, that Juju re-signing for a year pushed the hopes for Claypool out another year. With all that said, I'll be the first one to plant my flag on how this division turns out. I'm bullish on myself. I believe in my team. I got me coming out on top. Cooley, I think, has a strong roster and has enough depth that he's going to pull up that second spot. But I do believe it'll be pretty close between him and Jordan. I think Jordan comes up right behind that. And Troy, just without the draft capital, like I talked about, some of the offseason movings around weren't too favorable for him. I think that he's just going to have a little bit harder time sticking with the rest of this division that should all be strong with a lot of injured players coming back. Nick, I'll toss you next. What about you? Where are you planting your flag here?
Well, that was my original line, but there's no way I'm going to be the same as you. So I'm going to do you first. I already masturbated to you, so I almost have to pick you. I'm going to do Cooley second, lick my Dak third, and then Troy bringing up the rear.
So exactly the same as how I had it.
Oh, I thought you had. Did you have Troy before? Oh, I want Troy before then.
You want Troy before Jordan?
Yeah.
Jordan pulling up the rear again. All right. At least you differentiated a little bit. I'm not going to do it just like you. So here's exactly what you did.
Gotcha.
All right, Jeff, how about you?
I actually, it's hard to pick against the champ. I'm going to put him at 1, although I really like your moves this offseason, Mike. I don't know, just something about Cooley's team with that Mike Davis to Atlanta. I do like the Debo pickup, so I'm putting him at 1. I'm going to put you at 2, Mike. And then really this is the toss-up between Troy and Jordan right now. I think it could go either way. It's kind of a flip the coin approach, but I'll put Jordo at 3 for now, and then Troy at 4, and I could be swayed one way or another probably tomorrow to change that, but we'll see if there's any pending offseason moves that are made to kind of update those rankings.
And same as we did for this episode, when our next episode happens a month from now, I'm sure that something will have changed here. So we'll revisit and give everybody a chance to do some updating. But with that, I know why you guys all actually came and watched the show today. We got a special little interview. I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to toss it over and we'll see. This was a lot of fun to do.
Super secret guest pick of the week.
Oh, yeah? Well, I got plenty of secret stuff, too. I've got my secret socks on.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Matthew Betz, the lead writer and injury expert for the Fantasy Footballers, as well as host of the Fantasy Footballers DFS podcast. Thanks for being with us, Betz.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I'm really excited to be on here, and I think this is the first time I've ever been on a show where there has been a SpongeBob drop. So kudos to you guys for that. That's literally the first time ever. So that was awesome.
It's not our only SpongeBob drop, if I'm
That's
being
very true.
honest. And
Perfect.
and no, actually, this is so much by surprise to have someone who is anyone on our show that that drop was not intended for something like this. It was just the voiceover that I had from having other people in our league on to call picks for the week's game. So I had to
There you go.
make do with what I had.
There you go.
Stuff.
But no, so yeah, I know we've kept this as a surprise to the rest of our league and our our wide variety of viewers. Betz, why don't I throw it to you real quick and just what makes you decide to accept an invite to a show like this?
That's very true. That's crazy.
I am a football fiend, and when I say fiend, I mean a true addict, a true degen who honestly just loves talking about anything football related, whether it's dynasty, whether it's DFS, whether it's betting, prop betting, any and all of that kind of stuff is definitely right up my alley. So anytime someone asks me to come on, I truly appreciate it, and it feels like an honor. Like I'm just a regular dude like you guys, and people are like, hey man, you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes to hop on the show. Yes, I will make time for it. So I'm super excited to talk football with you guys tonight.
Yeah, and like I said, we couldn't have been more excited. Nick can attest. When I sent you that DM on Twitter, I had no expectation. I actually sat there and was like, man, am I insulting him for asking him to come on a show that gets 30
The
views?
Radishcast.
Yeah,
how rude of you.
So but then I jumped on a phone call with Nick probably 2 minutes after you said let's do it, and we got right into it. But
Sweet.
Let's jump right in and let's talk some football. So you are a PT by day, injury expert, as the footballers would call you. So let's talk injuries first and foremost. I really want to get your take. We hear the term injury prone thrown around every year. Everybody wants to call a player injury prone. If you look at a couple of years ago, Dalvin Cook was seen as this big injury prone guy, and then he goes one season without getting hurt, and suddenly that tag goes away. So when you're looking at players, how do you really evaluate what is injury prone and what's maybe just a couple of unlucky situations?
Yeah, it's sort of a delicate balance of kind of understanding a player's injury history and then sort of understanding what is their environment or kind of what is the ecosystem that they're living in right now. And for every player in football, it is a recipe for injury. So I want to give a shout out to my good buddy, Edwin Porras. He's also a PT, works for Fantasy Points. He has done research showing that there are less than 2% of games in the NFL that are injury free. So you're basically asking players to come out into a sport that injuries just happen. That's just what happens in football, right? It's one of the highest injury rates in the entire sports world. So in and of itself, all of these players are stacked up against the cards in terms of staying healthy. We also know, kind of looking at injury rates in different positions, running backs just get hurt more than other players. So just because I'm trying to think of a good example, just because Dalvin Cook, like you said, had a couple bad runs of injury doesn't necessarily mean that he is injury prone. The position in general is more likely to sustain injury. There's a lot of research out there that supports that. So those are kind of two underlying factors just to understand in terms of football in general. But then looking at more specifically, I do not believe in the term injury prone necessarily. And the reason that I say that is because what you're implying with that term that you'll hear out there is basically that this player just has something inherently in their DNA that is predisposing them to injury. And there are super rare cases where that does exist, but we don't actually know from a medical level, is that for this player or that player A or player B? We don't really know. And it's super rare as is. So the fact that we're even trying to project that onto a roster of 32 NFL teams is fool's gold. You'll never figure it out. So I almost kind of throw it off as it's not really even a thing. But there are players who have a certain injury that are more prone to having the same injury in the future. And that's sort of what I think people generally mean when they say injury prone. For example, Will Fuller and the hamstrings, right? We know what goes on there. We know that is a higher injury rate. He has multiple in his injury history. So yes, he is a player who's more prone to a future hamstring injury than someone else who has never had one in their entire life. That is absolutely 100% correct. But for me, when I feel I hear the term injury prone, it's often misused to kind of describe a player who has had a lot of bad luck. Thinking about, Keenan Allen from 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, Keenan Allen basically got me a job with the Ballers, just being like, this guy is not injury prone. People were really worried because he had the fractured collarbone, he had the knee injury, he had lacerated kidney, I think it was, or a spleen, and all of a sudden everyone started freaking out. And what I look for when I look to try to predict, how risky is this player in terms of injury, it's really the recurring theme, right? The guy who has several ankle sprains, the guy who has 6 hamstring strains in his history, Jordan Reed with the concussions, like those kind of things. Yeah, you could say that player is more prone to a certain injury, but I think the term in general is sort of a misnomer.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I follow you on Twitter, and I saw you actually did a write up about George Kittle and how a lot of his injuries came as a blocker, as a defenseless receiver. They weren't something that it was more unlucky than injury prone, and that's really where they kind of dug this question out of. I guess one player, just to pick one out of the crowd, Raheem Mostert is one that sticks out, as a guy who's starting to get older and has had a couple of those, ankle injuries last year that are looking to slow him down. Is that one player that you think might fall into that category?
Yeah, definitely. He's in the ultimate draft kit. I read up the injury report section every year. He's in there as a player who I'm kind of concerned about. Like, missed a couple of games last year with a sprained MCL, then also had a high ankle sprain on top of that. And he's a guy who really hasn't ever played 16 games in his career. Now, for the running back we talked about, it's not common anyway to do that. So that's sort of stacked up against him and any other running back, really. But looking at kind of his injury history, like you said, multiple ankle issues is kind of what I'm looking at. He's 29 years old, missed 5+ games in every season except for one in his pro career, has never proven he can actually carry the rock, as a full-time running back. Like, there's a lot of research out there and a lot of, things stacked up against his bet to play 14, 15, 16 games, or 17, I guess, this year, really. And so we know that he carries a higher, re-injury risk entering this year than some of the other running backs on that roster. So yes, I think Raheem Mostert definitely fits the bill of a guy that I'm probably staying away from. Even in Dynasty, if I'm a contender, I'm looking to get out from Raheem if possible at this point in his career.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah,
I actually have a question too for about usage too. Is that an impact on your decision-making process? Like Barkley versus Kamara, I know some carries were taken away last year from Kamara. So I don't know, does that play into it as well, your usage?
As far as like risk of injury, if a certain player carries the ball, the ball a certain amount of time.
Yeah, increased volume.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. You would think that, the obvious answer is like, oh, this player touches the ball more, they're going to get tackled more, they're going to be more at risk for injury. But the data doesn't actually show that, which is shocking. Okay. A lot of the data is actually looking at players coming out of college going to the NFL and seeing, did this player who had X number of carries, I can't remember what the threshold they used was, but basically did they exceed that or not? And did their injury risk increase when they had more than whatever they just chose as their cutoff? And the answer was no, they were basically the same. So even though players are, entering the NFL too with like huge workloads, people were always concerned about, we heard it last year with Jonathan Taylor. It was like, well, he's a ton of work on his legs. Can he hold up in the NFL? I mean, we're lucky to get these running backs for 3 years. So like, It doesn't matter what they did in college, right? Like it's a misnomer out there. And actually the data shows that it doesn't actually correlate.
That's really interesting. So that'll bring us to the next point. Are you about targeting players later in the draft that you think would slip because of this? Do you have any suggestions on that? I mean, you can go both. We're just talking about rookies though right now. So
yeah, a guy that I was really excited about entering the pre-draft process was Terrace Marshall out of LSU. He is a guy who quietly was awesome in that LSU offense, but everyone always talked about, right, Joe Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and of course Jamar Chase, et cetera, et cetera. He kind of seems to be the forgotten guy. And it's all because right before the NFL draft, there were teams that were maybe concerned about his injury history. And to me, it seems a little overblown. He's a guy who's missed time because of recurring foot issues, but they're on opposite sides. So he had an injury in high school that he ended up having a fracture with a dislocation of his ankle, had to kind of redshirt his rookie year or his freshman year really at LSU, came back, had a stress fracture on the other side a couple years later. So outside of those two things, like that's it in his injury history. I don't know if it was something else that maybe the teams didn't see, like they didn't have enough confidence talking to like prior coaches, or I don't know what it was, but based off just those two things, it's not really that concerning to me anyway. So he's a guy that I've been scooping up later in like the late second of especially Superflex leagues, getting him kind of mid to early second in single quarterback leagues. He's a guy who I would have taken in the first round, even before this news, and still with this news that I would still take him there. So yeah, he's a guy that I think is a huge value right now in rookie drafts that I love his prospect profile, his production that he had at LSU, and I like the landing spot too.
Yeah, and I guess looking at the bigger picture outside of even rookies, I'm going to throw out a couple names here, and we'll play a little bit of a. I'm not going to say play a game because I know you get flashbacks from Borg when anybody talks about playing a game.
But makes me look like an idiot on the show every time.
But I'm gonna throw out a couple of names, and I just want you to either say, fade if it's someone that their injury is causing a dip for you versus their ADP, and even if it's not, a several round thing, if it's just like, man, this guy's usually a mid first guy, I wouldn't touch him until late first. So I just want you to either say fade or I don't know, what other word do we want to use, Nick? Fade or scoop? How about that?
Scoop. I like scoop. We used that earlier. Yeah. Scoop them up.
I'm gonna throw out a couple players who were injured last year at their current ADP. Would you fade them or would you scoop them? So let's go with Saquon Barkley.
Oh, this is terrifying to say, but I'm gonna fade him at his ADP because of where he's going.
Christian McCaffrey.
Scoop.
Easy.
Joe Burrow.
This is gonna be a horrible answer. I'm sort of in between, and I feel like I have to explain on that.
All right, we'll let you explain on this one.
Okay, so he's going as a quarterback 9 and underdog right now, which I do not love. I think that's a little early for a player who everyone is just assuming like is going to be totally fine this year. And I do think I think he returns the form and he's totally fine late in the year. But when you're drafting him at quarterback 9, like you're almost already at ceiling for Joe Burrow, in my opinion, coming off of this significant knee injury, where in order to get to the top, 5 at the quarterback position, you have to run the football. Like in today's NFL, it's either Pat Mahomes or Russian quarterbacks that get there. And if he's not going to, run like these other guys are, like Lamar, Josh Allen, etc., and he's not going to throw the ball like Mahomes, where is there room for growth with him? So that's kind of where I'm like, I think his ADP's okay, and I think he'll return to form, but I'm not really investing at the ADP, if that makes sense. I just like to find guys that are able to kind of exceed at their ADP. In Dynasty, still love him. Still absolutely love him. And then in redraft leagues, I think he's going more like quarterback 12 or so. So I think that at that price, I will scoop. At like QB9 best ball, I will fade.
All right, I got 2 more. Dak Prescott.
Scoop. Big time.
Big time scoop.
Very excited about Dak.
And the last one is going to be Cortland Sutton.
Oh, I like that as well. Scoop.
All right. So no, I like those. All right, switching back to rookies. This is where you get to just blow up our league. So, like I said, like I told you when I first asked you to be on the podcast, we are very much, centered around our dynasty league. And so whoever you name here is going to probably jump about a full round in ADP. So I want to ask you, who is your top rookie sleeper? So I'm talking someone 3rd, 4th round, 5th round of rookie drafts. We're single quarterback. I don't think once you get to that point, it really matters. They're all really the same versus super flex. But who's someone that you'd always want to target that late in a rookie draft?
Yeah, this is always like I feel like the key question come rookie season. And I just want to preface this for all of your league mates. Regardless of whoever comes on the show or any of your friends that you ask, the answer is 99.9% wrong. So please do not hold me to this, because we know in the 4th and 5th round, they're just a bunch of dudes that you hope even make the team at this point.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, this is kind of a little higher than maybe what you suggested, but like late 3rd or even like middle 3rd. Sometimes I've seen him in the 4th. I still like Tylan Wallace quite a bit.
Okay.
He is a guy who I haven't been able to quit. And it's mostly because his production profile is actually really, really strong. He did have the ACL, which a lot of people were kind of concerned about, but he showed last year, coming off the injury, that he was able to succeed and perform. And now he's entering the NFL, 2 years out from injury, which we know that the performance increases the further you get out from injury. So I love Tylan Wallace. I liked his tape a lot. A guy that can really high point the football, go up and get it kind of player. The only thing that's really tricky with him is that you're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to literally put him on your taxi squad or your bench and just kind of sit there and hope that he gets a shot, because it's the Ravens. They ranked 32nd in pass rate 2 years in a row. The depth chart in front of him, yes, it has Marquise Brown. They obviously took the first rounder there with Rashad Bateman. So like it's stacked up against him. Don't get me wrong, but he's just a guy that I want to bet on his talent, and maybe he kind of has this like late development in his career. But gosh, if he would have gone anywhere else, I would have been much more excited.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. You hear a lot of talk about Rashad Bateman, falling out of the graces based on his landing spot. He was being talked about as the second, third prospect by a lot of people coming out of this class for the wide receiver position. But yeah, Tylan Wallace is definitely one that if he would have landed on a Chargers offense or somewhere else where maybe there was a few more targets available, he would have really jumped up.
Yep, definitely.
So I got a question that could not be more fitting. And I wrote this question, and then I saw you retweeted something that caught my eye, and it was based on how camp reports are all over the place. And so we're in the middle of the season of off-season OTAs and just nonstop. Oh, this guy is going to be a starter now, and now this guy looks like a wide receiver one, and you see all sorts of things. So I really want to get your feel on how you separate noise from news, and really, there's two sides of this. Last year you could have been on the early side of picking up James Robinson based on a couple of camp reports that changed your whole season. But you could also have gotten the other side of it and went out and acquired Le'Veon Bell because Adam Gase says he looked good and motivated. And then, that we all see how that worked out. So how do you really, approach seeing all of these different, reports coming out?
Yeah, like you said, it is a lot of noise right now, and there's maybe 2% of it's actually news that's actionable. So I try not to read a lot of news often, to be honest with you. Like, you could get lost every day if you go on I can't say NBC Sports Edge. If you go on Roto World, you can get lost there just looking at every report from every day. Or if you're on Twitter, you see people hyping up certain players all the time. But for me, I follow what the team actually does. I don't care about what they say at all. Like they're there to talk about their guys. They're not going to say anything bad about their players. So I'm more looking at what does playing time look like in the preseason? What does the video clips show when you're looking for players coming off of injury, that kind of stuff? Like, how well are they moving? That's what I look for. And I really try to find a beat reporter for every team that I trust a lot, because there's 30 to 50 for every single team. So again, it's easy to get lost in the weeds, especially on Twitter. But I think finding, your 32, the ones that you truly trust, and being able to, if you're a sicko like me, put on notifications on your phone or follow most of their tweets, then that's the way to do it, in my opinion. I have a list. If your friends or anyone's interested, let me know. I'm happy to share it of the ones that I follow. But yes, that is the way that I go about it, because like I said, there's just so much this time of year, and all of it's positive.
Yeah, don't share that list with those guys. We'll just take it though.
Perfect. You can edit this part out.
Yeah, right. All right. The next portion of it is, how do you value future draft picks like 2022, 2023? Right now, this is, in our league, we actually saw a lot of future picks being thrown around, especially after the first round, not knowing how people are going to finish. How do you value them going?
Yeah, so I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I'm not a huge Devy guy. There's some resources that I trust. Shout out to my guy, Ray Garvin. He's awesome. He knows this stuff. I trust his opinion about college football way more than mine. So it's kind of one of those things that if someone is really hyped about future draft classes and they're willing to sort of plant their flag on a draft class, I'm willing to sell you my rookie pick, because I don't even know if this league is going to be around in 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? People just think that they can predict what the future is going to look like. And then you have guys who go back to school, or guys who get an injury, or who knows what. I will definitely trade you my first in 3 or 4 years. Also knowing that, you you can eventually over time recoup that if you really want to get it back via trade and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like people are trying to just get ahead of themselves almost too much with those rookie picks. And for me, I'm willing to take the player that I know is going to be on an NFL field for the next 2 years, rather than wait it out and just be like, oh, look at this team that's going to be sick in 4 years, because who knows? It may never happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a situation, not going to name any names, but a guy who really pushed his window out. He traded away Hopkins and Ridley and Chubb all last year. On an average, he was a contending team, but he wanted picks and he wanted rookies, and you saw
what his whole team is really. It's all just hope right now. You're looking at John. Oh, John, sorry.
Yeah, that's rough, man. I would not have done that.
No, I don't know why he did.
So the one last question I want to get into, and then we'll let you go. I'm sure you got other things to do tonight, but one thing, as we were creating this league, we were looking for how we could make it more fun. And one of the least fun parts about fantasy football, in my mind at least, is when someone else makes a trade and it's a big blockbuster trade, and you look at it and you say, oh man, if I would have known that guy was on the block, I would have offered way more, or I would have offered this or that or the other thing. So we actually implemented our counter offer rule, and this works well just because we're a group of college buddies. We all know each other well. We communicate really well. So basically, whenever a trade happens in our league, it goes live to the rest of the league for 24 hours. And during that time, anybody can send any counter offer to either person, as long as it includes at least one of the pieces. And then if they accept a counter offer, 4 more hours gets tacked on to give other people time. We've had double, triple counters, and it's a lot of fun. I've been on the wrong end of a couple, trades getting stole out from under me, but it's still a lot of fun. And so I'm really curious. Have you dealt with any leagues or dealt with any, heard about any just creative, interesting rules that you thought maybe made the game more fun, or maybe even some bad ones that really you think took away from the game?
That is an insane rule, and that gives me stress just thinking about it. Like just refreshing your inbox to see like did another trade go through or something, or like a group chat. Yeah, that makes me stressed. You guys are sickos. I like rules that sort of help to make the league, like give you more skin in the game, even for like rebuilding teams. So my college buddies and I have a dynasty league that we've had for, God, I don't even know at this point, 6-7 years, something like that. And for us, there's obviously a punishment for whoever comes in dead last. So if you want to tank, go ahead, but you know that you're gonna have to do an embarrassing punishment. But I like the sort of leagues and rules that kind of have skin in the game. So we often have trades that go down in the league, and then people can kind of vote or like place a bet, like, hey, I bet owner A or owner B, their team is going to come out on the top of this trade in a year. Or let's say they traded, I don't even know, Chase Claypool, and you say, I don't think he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver. Someone else in your league says, that's a great trade, he's going to be top 24 or top 15, wherever you set the line. We'll like actually wager on the trades that happen. So that like you're invested in every single trade that goes down, and you don't have to wager on it. You can pass. But you're invested in seeing what the league is doing to make it very, very interactive, even if you're not the one actually trading. So I think it's a good way to get 12, or in our case 14 people involved, to really kind of be all in on the league, which is fun.
Yeah, that's actually, we might be stealing that one, because we have we have a member of the league that runs his own little mini sports book for the league, where we can bet on individual matchups. So if I play Nick one week, he sets an over under, and we get to actually bet on just that game and things like that. So so I have a feeling Tony might be taking a note or two.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Nick, any final thoughts?
No, not much. I just want to thank you for coming on. That was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I appreciate you having me. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody can find Matthew at the Fantasy PT on Twitter if you want to give him a follow there. Otherwise, go ahead and give the Fantasy Footballers DFS podcast a listen. And maybe even buy the UDK, which I know Matthew did a lot of work for. So I'm sorry I called you Matthew a couple of times. I know that you're more of a Betz guy, but
totally fine. My mom would be very proud right now.
All right. Well, Betz, we appreciate you coming on. Have a great night.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Max.
All right. we're back to the show. A great interview there. I couldn't get over how much, Betz, talking to him before and after the interview, during the interview, he was just a stand-up guy. Just, he just enjoyed the fact that he was there. He was having fun with us. It was just crazy. Jeff, I know you had to miss it, but how sad are you to not have been able to be a part of that?
I'm bummed. I'm actually super bummed. I was excited when we first found out about it, and then all the prep we were doing for it too. So, last minute changes in my schedule that day, kind of had some priority changes. So, but
damn it,
you guys, it was exciting. You guys did a nice job. That was an awesome interview.
Nick, anything else you came away with from about Betz and about that interview?
Well, Betz is a stud. Let's leave it at that. He was, just easy to talk to too. So good at podcasting. Obviously, he does it for a dang living, or not even a dang living, but it was fun talking to him.
Yeah, so he's a doctor. He's a PT by day, and then just also really good at talking about fantasy football, and does that, and also gets paid to do that. So,
Yep.
Definition of a dual threat.
Glad to have him on the show. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, he's a dual threat fantasy analyst.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that interview, we're not doing much more for segments on the show, but we're not getting out of a show without.
Ask me the questions, Bridgekeeper. I'm not afraid.
This here's Mike's. Will it happen?
All right, Mike. So will we ever have another high-profile guest on the Radishcast? Like we just had. Oh,
that was Mike's. Will it happen?
All right, everybody. With all that out of the way, with the great interview we were able to have, we're just happy for you guys stopping by. I'm super excited for the offseason to continue, and I could not be more thrilled about football season. So with all that, good luck to everybody, unless you're playing one of us. Have a good one.
Webster's Dictionary defines radish as a swollen, pungent tasting edible root high in potassium, which can help lower blood pressure. Or more importantly, three guys spitting nonsense and talking about fantasy football. Add salt and pepper and chomp into another episode next time. See y'all later.
That mullet's got some nice flip to it.